Coming up on the Paper Talk, we'll be looking at the morning after the night before Manchester United's loss to Manchester City, dominating the back pages. We'll be getting some of their thoughts from some of our ex-players. Also, we're looking at Erik ten Hag's comments. He thinks we're on the up. Do you agree? Let's get involved in the chat. Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and the weather is lovely. So get your barbecues out if you can do. We'll get straight into it. Most of the news this morning focuses on yesterday's epic game at Old Trafford when United took part in a 3-goal thriller with an absolutely mesmerising performance from our defence, midfield and attack. Of course, I'm joking. Only Andre Onana can hold his head high, in my opinion, after that absolutely shambolic performance. And much of the news is focusing on the quotes, the fallout, all the rest of it from that. Manchester United's forward, there's a graphic doing the rounds about Manchester United's forwards. We've basically not been scoring goals in the Premier League at all. Anthony, Garnacho, Højlund, Martial, Rashford and Sancho all have 1 goal and 1 assist between them. Those have both come from Marcus, who's hardly been setting the world alight. So obviously the rest have 0. Some of them haven't played a lot of games, a lot of minutes. Sancho's only had 76 minutes, for example, for obvious reasons. Others have played more. But it is a massive worry for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. That's one little bit of a report that's doing the rounds this morning. Also, let's just focus on something that, I don't know if positive is the right word, but I thought the way the club remembered Sir Bobby was, well, I think that is a positive one. I think it was respectful. Sir Alex Ferguson wrote in the programme before the game, he called him the greatest English player of all time. We saw the wreaths being laid by former City players as well as former United legends as well, or United legends, current United legends, not former United legends, former United players, the likes of Alex Stepney and John Aston Jr. I think were there as well. So yeah, it was respectfully observed, the minutes applause as you would expect. Plus there was a Sir Bobby sort of mural that was created. I think it was in the Sir Alex Ferguson stand as well. So it was good to see him being honoured in the right way. Unfortunately, the team didn't exactly pay tribute to him, but that's a different story. Johnny Evans has said he's baffled by the decision to give Manchester City a penalty. Now listen, United were terrible yesterday. I'm not going to defend that performance, but that doesn't sort of dismiss or erase the point that for me that was a very harsh penalty. I think if you're going to give penalties like the one we saw on Rasmus Højlund on, was it Rodri, then you're going to see them given on every single corner or free kick into the box, because that happens constantly. I don't think it was a penalty. You may disagree. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Let me know what you think. It's easy when things are going so badly just to hate on everything and go, oh, who cares, we were terrible anyway, which we were, but that doesn't, for me, alter the fact that that wasn't a penalty. United start to the season is our worst since 1986-87, losing 5 of our opening 10 games. You know what happened in 1986-87? Ron Atkinson got sacked and Sir Alex Ferguson came in, I do believe. I think that was that one, wasn't it? He came in 86 towards, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it. So, doesn't bode well for Erik ten Hag, does it really, when you're looking at those sort of statistics? Some opinions as well. Roy Keane, as you'd expect, was quite vociferous regarding United's performance yesterday, in particular Bruno Fernandes's. He says he should be stripped of the captaincy. He said he's the complete opposite of what a captain should be. Where do you start, he said. Where do you finish? Defensively and physically, they look all over the place. He'll have a sleepless night tonight talking about Ten Hag. City weren't at their best, but they're just toying with United now. They're on different levels. And then he said about the things he could change. He said the first thing I would do is take the captaincy off him. I know it's a big decision, but Fernandes is not captain material. He's a talented player, but what I saw today, he's whining, he's moaning, he's throwing his arms up in the air constantly. It really isn't acceptable when you're talking about where do you make changes, board level. Managers, I'd start with that because the manager is capable of doing that. Basically saying the manager, yes, there's issues at the board and we know about the ownership saga that's dragging on, and that can't have a positive effect on the team and the players, but also Erik ten Hag can't physically do anything about that right now. Keane was making a point that he can do something about the captaincy. He can change it. What is that the right way forward? Get involved in the chat and the comments. Does that stink of a manager who doesn't know what he's doing, or is that a manager going, look, I need to change something, I need to be proactive, this is what I'm going to do? How do you think that want to go down? Let me know what you think. Gary Neville also was criticising Ten Hag. He criticised him for sending on Mason Mount for Sofian Amrabat at half-time. He said, excuse me, that was brave, if not a little reckless. He opened up his midfield and got exposed. I don't think it was a great day for his substitutions. I have to agree with that. He goes on to say, changing the manager? Absolutely not. But there's no doubt he is having issues. He's been here for 18 months and none of us can explain what United tried to do. They play underdog football. My anger isn't with Ten Hag. I don't think he's the fundamental problem. The toxicity at this club is eating alive every manager and every player that comes here. Eric Ten Hag said something which you might find a little bit worrying. Now, I get you try and be positive, especially after a disappointing result. You might try and put a positive spin on it. And he said the 3 games before we won and the spirit is very good. Fighting spirit is very good. So I think we are on the way up. The start is difficult, but we are on the way up. Now, when you see things like that, it's difficult to sort of agree with it, because I don't think those victories were particularly emphatic, to be honest with you. I thought the Copenhagen game, we were pretty poor. I thought the Brentford game, we relied on those 5 minutes from Scott McTominay right at the death. And the Sheffield United game, I thought we were not great in the first half, decent in the second half. So I wouldn't look at those 3 victories as an indicator that Manchester United have turned a corner on the way up. I get the point, though. They are 3 successive wins. So if we're going to give the manager the benefit of the doubt, I think that's what he's sort of alluding to, rather than that Manchester United are somehow steamrolling on our way forward. I think it's pretty obvious we're not. And I think this is sort of the issue at the minute with Manchester United and what's going on. I think there's this sort of doubt or questions whenever you comment on anything that things can't be mutually exclusive. It is possible to criticise Eric Ten Hag, to question some of his tactics, to question some of his signings, to ask about certain things he's doing, and still think he's the right man for the job, and still think he should keep his job. It is possible to do that. I think Eric Ten Hag should be given more time, but I do question some of the substitutions he's made, some of the starting 11s he's sent out. There's nothing new with that. I question Sir Alex Ferguson at times. I remember the game against Barcelona in Rome. I was surprised that Carlos Tevez didn't start that game. I remember the one in the Champions League final in 2011. Berbatov not making a squad. I remember a lot of United fans were questioning that. There's been many games with Sir Alex Ferguson, who for me is the greatest manager of all time, where you go, hang on a minute, I don't really get that one. So questioning a manager doesn't mean you don't rate a manager or don't think he's the right man for the job. You might not. You might think Eric Ten Hag isn't, but you can still question it. I think there's this sort of theory that things can't be mutually exclusive, is either one or the other. It is possible to think the performances haven't been good enough, that the team aren't performing to the optimum level, and still get behind them, as we saw a lot of United fans do yesterday. It is possible to think that the owners are an absolute shambles and their ownership of Manchester United Football Club has been a disgrace, and still think the players on the pitch should be performing better. Yes, that can have an effect, but we still want to see more from some of these players. It is possible to think yesterday's performance against Manchester City was nowhere near good enough, and yet that wasn't a penalty decision, that we were harshly judged there and they were given a 1-goal start they didn't deserve, despite the fact United weren't good enough. I think there's this sort of attitude or this theory that you can't it's one way or the other. It's not. Life isn't like that, and football certainly isn't like that. So it's always okay to question certain things, to not agree with certain things. That doesn't mean you've got an entirely blanket opinion on the matter in hand or the topic that you're talking about. Not everything is mutually exclusive, and there's a lot of things I question about Manchester United. Now, there's certain players that I like, that I really rate, that I've stood here and defended, that I think probably need dropping. They do. I think they're just not performing. Marcus Rashford is probably my favourite Manchester United player. He didn't perform yesterday. It's probably his worst game in a Manchester United shirt. Is it time to take him out of the firing line? Is it time to think about Bruno Fernandes as captain, another one I really rate? Is it time to change things? Because you're looking at that team, you're looking at the performances, you think they're not good, it's not good enough. Doesn't mean you don't like those players, you don't rate those players. It just means you might think now is the time to have a bit of a change. So this idea that things can't be mutually exclusive or that everything, is mutually exclusive, it baffles me. It does. Everything's baffling me at the minute. It's just rubbish, innit? Honestly. United are playing terribly. We're getting beat off Manchester City. VAR hates us. Honestly, I've had enough. I've just had enough of it all. Where does it end? Where does it end, eh? It's raining. Getting soaked. Just had enough. It's all rubbish. Anyway, apologies for that. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. We'll be back later on with the Paddock podcast. I've been Jay Motty. This has been the Paper Talk outside Old Trafford. Thanks for watching.